Excuse me.
3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to Know the Score. I'm your host for today's episode, Don Delarente. You can follow me on Twitter at Don Delarente. I'm here with my co host today, Mr. Tyler Ball. What's going on, Tyler?
Hey, what's happening, folks? Uh, it's- you know, now it's going to be one of it's probably the toughest points of the year where you have the NBA Finals and the NHL Finals ending. You've got you've got summer, and it's about maybe 60, 50 or 60 days plus until um, the NFL season. So let us be that bridge for you.
You can follow Tyler on Twitter at TABall1. You can also follow Know the Score on Twitter at KTSPod. We like to let everybody know you can find Know the Score online at cspn.us. You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and SoundCloud. You can also catch us on any app that allows you to subscribe, download, and listen to all podcasts. So, Tyler, we're going to get right into it as they're over. The NBA Finals have wrapped up. Golden State with a gentleman's sweep, 4 games to 1, as they clinched the title at home in the Bay in front of their raucous crowd. And basically, Andre Iguodala reached back into the fountain of youth and found one of those games, and it had to happen to be at the closeout game. So, just kind of give you your final thoughts wrapping up the series, the game 5, and congrats to Golden State.
Well, a few takes. I'm gonna just break it down. I got five things to remember. Number one, the uh, the Warriors just proved everybody right. Um, a lot of people said that they didn't need Kevin Durant to be this good, and while that proved to be true, it was still fun watching. Uh, Number two, the folks want to talk about competitive balance and the NBA. Personally, I think that it's always overrated, and it proves that we will watch whatever narrative that's being created to bring fans. Uh, we're still going to watch. I mean, there have only been 11 champions since 1979. Okay, and I go back to that period specifically because that was when the Seattle Supersonics won, and that began the first reign of Lakers and Celtics and so on and so forth. Uh, but still, there have been only 11 different teams that have won championships since then, and people still watch the NBA. And actually, the finals ratings came back, and they have been the best since the Bulls in '98. But of course, that was Michael Jordan's last run. Uh, Next point is that uh, Cleveland could have still been more competitive in the series had the bench shown up. Uh, we were very dangerously close to going into game 5, 2 games apiece. Uh, they didn't get any help, and part of it was, I think, some decision making by Tyronn Lue, uh, not playing Channing Frye, not playing, I guess, not figuring out how to use Derek Williams after Darren Williams didn't pan out, and that that happens. But I just think that if you if Lou were to do it all again, I think he'd probably retool his if he would have played around more with his roster. Uh, and I guess my last point would be that um, 3 is always going to be greater than 2. Um, I think that the advent of the 3-point shooting has kind of changed the culture of basketball, particularly with the Warriors. I mean, we've always had uh, multiple 3-point shooters, but to have them on the same team and have them be quality scorers, uh, it's just incredible. Um, and I think that when you add Draymond Green hitting the 3-point shot, that makes them from being a great team to to use the dreaded word super team, um, because they just collapse the entire floor. Um, guys shooting better than what their size dictates. Um, and Draymond Green's added Draymond the addition of Draymond Green shooting threes well just boosts his value, um, because he already gives you high value on the defensive end, and you put him on the floor with an Iguodala, and a Durant who guarded the rim better than most anticipated. Just made it too much for Cleveland to Cleveland to just overcome pretty much. Those are my takes.
I think that's the one thing that's kind of underlooked when it comes, or overlooked rather, for the Warriors. Their guys aren't just specialists. They don't just have a guy who can just shoot. They have pretty much, everybody has three or four things that they do well that they incorporate on the basketball court. And then the fact of like one or two of those things at the top is like, oh yeah, they're great shooters. So like you're saying, they're messing around with the physics of how you play basketball because they're stretching you so far in your defensive concepts and everything. I mean, they're really changing basketball because for ever since the 3-point shot has been in the NBA, the narrative has been a jump shooting team can't win the championship because in the playoffs things get physical. You have to have scoring in the inside, and the talk that the Warriors have now kind of starting to erode, and now you got more people kind of moving to their philosophy of how they play basketball. To your point again, the final game, game 5, bench scoring was like something like 35-9 or something like that. So yeah, to your point, a game where Cleveland really outplayed the Warriors as far as if you look at the actual box scores as far as shooting percentages and rebounding and 3-point percentages, Cleveland actually played better than Golden State. But then you get to the bench and everything. So that's definitely a good point that you made there. And then lastly, kind of like you're saying, Steve Kerr, if you looked at the last game, did not play McGee at all. He didn't play Clark at all. He went with McCall and he went with Iggy. Iggy played something ridiculous like 38 minutes. He kind of went a little bit smaller and kind of, basically was kind of like, hey, if they're going to, I'm going to put my best defensive guys out here, regardless of their size. So I thought that was kind of key to Game 5 as well. So we'll move on to the legacy of the Finals MVP, Kevin Durant. A lot of people said that KD would be in a lose-lose situation because if he didn't play well and the Warriors lost, then he's going to get dragged. If he played well and the Warriors won, then people are going to be like, oh, well, you joined the team that was 73-9 the year before. I mean, you should play well. So, Tyler, to from your point of view and your standpoint, by him being the Finals MVP, by him averaging the ridiculous averages that he had over 30 points in every game, what does this do for his legacy as he's won his first championship?
Let's just go to the point where number one, Kevin Durant has a championship. At the end of the day, we do recognize great players for being great. The whole dynamic of him leaving Oklahoma City does not change the narrative that he's a champion and he fulfilled expectations. Number 2 overall pick, generally They expect the number two overall pick to be a dominant player and a multiple all star and a champion. And the fact that he uh, chose to do that in a system where he didn't want to carry a team on his back, more power to him. Uh, Honestly, I think that uh, the whole concept of it being a quote unquote weak move uh, is extremely overrated because I think that my generation and maybe even further back has always dealt with the fact that we had teams that that had superstars, and those superstars were the ones that everything ran through. Uh, you look at the 1980s with Bird and Magic, and mind you, those guys were superstars and they were promoted like superstars, but they weren't the only pieces of that team. Several, the Lakers Celtics rivalry is littered with Hall of Famers. Uh, but because Bird and Magic were the promoted stars of the league at the time, every move that they did was magnified, or sometimes, I mean, positive and negative. Same thing with Jordan. Same thing with LeBron. It's just that we put Jordan on a higher claim, on a higher level, because Jordan never lost in the finals. Uh, I think that when you look at history, I think that Durant's greatness, being who he is on the floor, uh, a 7 footer who is just unguardable and can shoot, up to 40 feet, is just incredible. But he has a ring, and that will move him ahead of some people in their eyes. I mean, he's still young, so he's still going to score a ton of points. He may not have the rebounds or the assists, but he doesn't have to. He's going to be recognized as a great scorer, and with his other credentials, he'll probably end up being in the Hall of Fame, which that ring matters more to him than the Hall of Fame does. Where he
Right.
ranks in the echelon of other athletes, I don't want to say, because he still got a long time to play basketball. Where we put
Right.
him, he still is determining that. I don't make legacy calls after a guy this young. Uh,
I I guess legacy wouldn't be the correct word to use. I guess perception of Kevin Durant right now because he's still playing would be
now, if
the
you
proper term to use.
want to talk about perception, uh, he's polarizing, and to be honest with you, I can appreciate that he doesn't care, because as we tell these people, I've been saying a lot of times, the whole super team narrative is garbage. Uh, don't talk about super teams in a league where parity doesn't really exist. Um, he changed Kevin Durant changed the competitive balance of one team, not just not the entire NBA. You got this whole super team narrative floated around, but you don't want to count. You don't want to talk about the 25 or 30 so-called terrible GMs that have shaped the entire league for the last 30 years. I mean, let's talk about it. I can name you two GMs that are responsible for 12 trades that have changed three different franchises, that have made them from either great to sorry, or from terrible to NBA champions. So it's not um I think that people want to um people want the next Jordan, because Jordan was casted as such a powerful figure, particularly because he won on the court, that I don't think we've ever really gotten over it as a society in terms of basketball fans. these conversations now, the whole super team concept is because of Michael Jordan, of comparing LeBron's legacy to Michael Jordan. That's where this all started, and part of that's LeBron's fault. I give him credit that KD doesn't want any part of that, and I can respect it.
I think the thing that makes Michael Jordan such the icon is it's the perfect storm of the middle 80s, cable television, the popularity of the NBA. The NBA is now like, it wasn't even the finals weren't even broadcast live until like 1981.
Mm-hmm.
So, he kind of came in at that time where the eyeballs were shifting to the NBA. It was the hip thing to be seen at the NBA games.
Correct.
Then he struggled. So people got to see that maturation process of, man, he's on his way. And then you had the people who was like, well, he'll never win because all he can do is score. And then you had the other people who were like, man, when he does to figure out how to work all it together, he's going to be the best we've ever seen. And then it all blossomed. And then everybody who had doubts about him shifted over to the camp of the people who were like, you should have been over here in the first place. And he continued to do it. And he won and he won and he met everybody's expectations. And when you meet everybody's expectations, there's no downfall for Michael Jordan. There's no the way the press was, the lack of social media, there's no real skeletons for Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? He performed on the court, he's performed on business, he performed in the realm of being an icon as far as the shoes and the look and just the name and the brand, everything associated with it.
Let's get to the point where
That's why he's at the top.
it's gotten to the point where people are looking for negatives. I mean, he guarded his image so well that you can't. You have to scrap, claw, and find bad things to say about Michael Jordan. You really do. And the thing is, yeah, and it is a perfect storm because he's an example of how perfect marketing can be. Tiger Woods was that for quite a while.
Right. But the thing about it is no matter how much you market, you gotta perform at the end because you'll end up with a Dan and Dave situation.
Mm-hmm.
Where no matter how much they pump into you, how much they take you from being on the fringe of, the conscious of the populace, of the popular people to right here in the forefront. And then if you don't perform, it's all for nothing. I don't care how much money they prop up behind you.
I mean, look at Magic.
So
Magic took immense heat when he lost to Bird, and that's after 2 rings. I mean, the name Tragic Johnson actually happened.
right. So going on to kind of another narrative, we'll talk about the redemption of Steph Curry, as he had, a finals that was actually lived up to the hype of a 2-time MVP. As the previous 2 times he'd been in the finals, he'd kind of struggled, didn't have very impressive numbers. But in this finals, he almost averaged a triple double. He averaged like 27 points a game, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, or excuse me, yeah, 8 assists, 9 rebounds. He had actually more rebounds than Tristan Thompson throughout the whole series, which was key to the game plan, I guess, for the Warriors as they really focused on trying to keep Tristan Thompson off the offensive glass. So, did Steph kind of, change his narrative around a little bit? Everybody talks about, regular season is not really what it is once you start winning MVPs and things. It's about what you do in the playoffs, and especially when you make it to the finals. So, does this kind of cool the jets on the people who kind of had a negative, you know, slant on Steph because of what he has done in the finals previously?
Uh, I don't think that it changes the narrative because the entire narrative is that Steph shouldn't be put on the plane of a LeBron James, and I don't think that it's going to change the narrative in people's eyes, even though he performed well, because you have Kevin Durant. And I believe that although we know Steph is an all-star and he's a great player, I believe that the emergence of Durant, not only did it become a bigger story, it just overshadowed how Steph really played well, particularly after Christmas. Steph has put up some serious numbers when you add that since after the All Star break. He's really been one of the better players, and he's been probably a top three player in the league. Uh, but nobody watched. And mind you, Kevin Durant was sitting out, and they won 13 in a row. Uh, when Kevin was getting his knee scoped and sitting out, Curry kind of went back to the Curry of 2 years ago. However, because he has Durant, it won't change the media narrative. I think he's still going to be remarked as a great player, but until he gets the respect of the players in the league first, when the players can talk and say that they can appreciate Curry, then the narrative will start to change. Uh, I don't think that Curry's going to find I don't think a lot of people are going to do any favors for him in the media either. But that's really what controls the perception. Uh, a lot of people started to see that, Steph has been sold to us as the humble superstar when he's clearly not, especially on the court. But the fact that he played well means a lot to the Warriors, and it just expresses the Warrior super team dynamic. But I don't think it changes where he is in the echelon of the NBA. Top 5, top 10, but not in the elite number 1, number 2, number 3 conversation.
Speaking to Steph, I thought that the biggest thing that actually helped him this season was Durant getting hurt for that little stretch of time there, where he had to kind of go back and revert to being, the number one lead dog. Because I think he wanted to make Kevin the number one lead dog just so he could get familiar with the plays and the counters and, all the things that it
Mm-hmm.
takes to learn a new offense. But then once the injury happened and he kind of had to revert back to being the guy who's doing the number one offense stuff, then I think his point guard sensibilities really, which are underrated, kicked back in when Durant came back, because then he understood now how to work with Kevin Durant back and forth. Where, hey, KD may have it going in the first quarter, so I can give it to him and give it to him and give it to him. And he's such a good basketball player that once they start focusing on him, now he's going to give it back to me. And now we just change roles up. And that's how they could score 30 and 27 for a whole finals, because Steph realized, oh, okay, I still got to be me. I just can't give him everything. It looked like Steph was out there trying to score 20 points and have 20 assists and let Durant score 50 every night. But when he kind of dialed it back, where he got his points back going and realized Durant can score off of anything I give him, this is going to be real easy. I just need to make sure I do me. They took off and they lost one game. They lost 2 games out of their last, like, what, 40?
Just about, yeah.
It's like 38 and 2, 39 and 2
Mm-hmm.
since, the time that Kevin Durant came back through the end of this playoffs.
The crazy thing is, there's a great article on 538.com right now uh, with the Warriors didn't need Kevin Durant to be this good. That's the title of it. Uh, you have to figure out that Golden State's Golden State's threes, as good as they are at twos, they're so good at threes that they're almost twice as good as any other team. And there's an argument that they could shoot a whole lot more if they wanted to, and it's true. Um, when the Warriors outscored their opponents by 3.1 points per 100 possessions when Durant was playing and Curry was off the floor, but on the vice versa with Curry on the court and Durant on the bench, that number jumped to 16.1 points per 100 possessions. Um, the Warriors dynasty was it was built and it's still being built on Curry's ability to just shoot from distance. And as long as when they lock him up this summer in free agency, he's going to get that deal. He's going to be not only worth every penny, but he'll probably still be somehow underpaid because of the value he brings to that offense. I think if he keeps shooting, it's that team's going to be very difficult to beat for the next 3-4 years, especially if they take less money and keep the core together.
Right, right. It's a lot easier to do that once you win the title and people are getting a little bit older in age. These guys are getting closer to 30s. They're still in their late 20s. Now that the Warriors core has multiple rings, KD now has his ring. So, you can look at 3 or 4 million here or there and say, to keep it together and have the confetti fall down again. Yeah, let's do it. So
yeah, look at Klay Thompson, who's probably the most likely to leave. I think he takes less days just
oh
because.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he'll definitely make it up in just the winning and the, advertising and things like that. Being they're about to go to a new arena in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everybody on that team is about to just blow up as far as when it comes to marketing and those type of things. Now we'll move on to the man in Cleveland. He's already in the dungeon. He started working out again. Popped up on an Instagram video with no hair. He's balded out. He's gone full Dr. Evil LeBron. So, kind of, what's his next move? A lot of people in the streets and the barbershops are talking Paul George. If they can get Paul George, they'll make a difference. Everybody seems the consensus is, ship out Kevin Love. If they can ship out Kevin Love and bring in Paul George, that, LeBron will have enough firepower to go toe to toe with Golden State next year. So, Tyler, what do you see as LeBron's next move being?
Um, First order business is number one is to make this all official and uh, re-sign their GM re-sign David Griffin. That's number one. Um, everybody wants to say LeBron. It's LeBron's the GM and all that other stuff, and I think that you make sure that your circle is still there by signing your GM. Come on. Second thing, um, they're kind of in a conundrum here. I don't know if you can package enough in a trade to get Paul George for a 1-year rental. And that's the thing about Paul George going to the Cavs. Is he worth giving up your best asset on the glass other than Tristan Thompson for a 1-year rental? And then to make it worse, the following year, LeBron opts out and goes to LA with Paul George.
Tyler, can I jump in right quick?
Uh-huh.
This is why I never understood why they even traded for Kevin Love and gave up Wiggins. To me, it was like, oh, the blessing is LeBron is coming back, and you have this young dude who could basically be your guy. That nowadays you talk about trading for somebody. Well, guess what? What if you had Wiggins in his third year now? He's played in 2 finals. with LeBron. He's played in 3 finals now with LeBron. Coming into his 4th year where he's about to, come up on his money. Now it's not so dire if LeBron goes or stays because guess what? We still got Wiggins. We can re-sign Wiggins and let LeBron do what he wants to do. If LeBron wants to come back for 1 year and we re-sign Wiggins and it helps the team out, they can do whatever they want. That's why I never got the Kevin Love deal because it was always like the long play would be to have consecutive superstars.
They went for the and to the rationale behind it, and I think it was verified because they got the championship, was they figured they can always draft and rebuild after LeBron's gone. And I think you had the asset out there that was dangling. Your only asset to get some other inside scoring help, so LeBron wouldn't have to do any post work. He could actually run the team on the perimeter while you have another threat you could throw the ball into, and they could get buckets. I mean, yeah, you have Kyrie Irving, but you needed a third legitimate scoring option. And at the time, they just weren't sure if Wiggins, who is a 3-man, let's think about that for a second. He's
Well,
a three.
to me, Wiggins would have been the swing guy. He would have been the guy to play some two guard to kind of let LeBron play comfortable, and then whoever they had, I thought that the way that Blatt was going to come in and run their offense, that the offense itself would have taken care of LeBron having to be in the post or dictating how LeBron got into the post. But, things changed. They didn't stick with it. So, of course, dynamics changed and things like that. But I just thought, to me, just being a couch armchair GM, that Kevin Love is probably going to end up being, my thought was, the odd man out. His game doesn't really fit what LeBron wants to do or how you need to play for LeBron. Where Wiggins is tailor made because he's going to play on the outside naturally, and that just gives LeBron more space to do what LeBron wants to do, which is take it to the rim to get you back on your heels, and then once you start playing back, starts pulling up for his mid range jumper, and then once he gets that going, then he'll start taking you out to the 3 point line.
Okay, now here's another thing we need to consider too. If you're talking about adding more firepower, um, yes, Paul George would be ideal from a two-way perspective. Um, but not only is the 1 year rental a question, um, George is a ball dominant player too. How is he going to feel being the second and sometimes even the third option on the floor with a Kyrie Irving? Uh, and I think you have to let go in a move like that. You have to let Love go because Kyrie is not going to fetch you enough assets to get um, unless you package it with half of your guards. Um, the talk is Carmelo Anthony would waive his no trade clause and come to Cleveland. You give up so much on the defensive backboard if you go Carmelo Anthony that I don't know if that's going to be a great move either. I have no idea that works because
Well,
two ball dominant players.
let's say this. Okay, this kind of lead into our next topic, so we'll kind of
Mm-hmm.
fade into it as well. Okay, so let's say that we're being too short-sighted here because we all know that LeBron is a much global thinker than just kind of what's right in front of his hands. He thinks kind of way past that. So let's say that Cleveland's not even the destination. Let's say it's somewhere in the West. Jerry West just went to the Clippers, or is rumored to be going to the Clippers.
That's pretty much a done
So
deal.
so So apparently now Doc Rivers will have some help or will be kind of relinquishing the GM role for him. Is let's say that may be the spot that is ultimately gearing up to make the next run as a super team. It's 2 years away, so they have enough time to kind of figure out what they want to do with Chris Paul and Blake, because I think they're kind of locked into DeAndre Jordan, which I thought was a bad move when they re-signed him. It's going to be a bad move in 2 years when they try to make this work. But kind of is that kind of maybe where LeBron is thinking, like, I'll give Cleveland, I'll run this out with Cleveland, gave him the championship. We'll be in the running again for another one. We may get that one too. But ultimately, the Clippers may be the spot that everybody's going to try to load up to. And then you have that direct competition with Golden State.
I have one issue with that idea. LeBron and Doc. I don't like that combination. I really don't. I think that, yes, LeBron doesn't mind playing for a demanding coach, but I don't see LeBron wanting to gel and adjust to having to give more effort on the defensive end that Doc is going to make him do that if he goes to the Clippers. Also, the same thing with Chris Paul. I would like to see them play together, and I know that they're friends, but their on-court personalities are too much alike. And while in theory the Clippers would be a much better defensive team than they are right now, they're going to have to get, in order to make this happen, there's going to be some firepower they're going to have to give up, and that leads them to why they're getting blasted by the Warriors every time. It's because they don't have enough firepower, and they are just terrible defensively, and they still haven't figured out who's going to be forward. I think the Clippers actually have a better shot with Carmelo Anthony being the 3-man than LeBron James actually coming over there in 2 years.
Okay.
I think that LeBron actually has a better shot of being able to create the team that he wants with the assets that he would want to have to move pieces around if he went to the Lakers.
Okay. All right. So yeah,
It's
LA
possible.
may be the spot.
LA, I think is the spot, but I think it would make sense. It would make more sense, and it would be more of a win now mode if he and another free agent, particularly Paul George, could team up with whoever the Lakers get between the next two drafts, be it Lonzo Ball or Michael Porter or one of the dominant a dominant post player, whoever that may be, and then you roll out a team that's got. You might have another Cleveland Cavaliers on their hands in 2 years in LA. Who knows? But I think he's got a better shot of being in a situation that he wants if he goes to the Lakers.
All right.
I mean, the Clippers sound nice, but I don't know if he can get along with Doc.
Okay. Well, you can always get along with us here at Know the Score by following us on Twitter at KTS Pod. Now we talked about a little bit, teased a little bit. We're gonna talk about some NBA draft talk. As over the last 24 hours, 36 hours, a little bit of trade talk has been starting to stir up between Boston and the 76ers. Looks like Boston's trying to maybe get down to the third spot, have the Sixers come up to take the number one pick. And then, presumably, I guess they still would take folks, but you never know what they have on their draft board. So, Tyler, should the Sixers make this play, take the number one pick, and accelerate their process?
Man, this has been the wildest couple of days. The Boston Celtics, remember, have a legitimate top 3 pick to play with next year, which it has created all of this talk. They're playing with house money here. I mean, Danny Ainge holds all the cards. He's got like
And as a part of the deal, they would also get a future number one pick from the Sixers too. So yeah, he's playing that Red Auerbach style of GM.
he is literally holding about, this is one of those hands where you got about 6 or 7 spades, and you just trying to just put out there your middle level spade, and catch a book early, and see what happens. uh he's playing with house money, so he can actually get this, whatever he could actually get this pick on. He can pick, of course he can do the conservative thing and take Fultz. But you throw in the Sixers throw in another number one, which means wow, which means you could get more picks, more top level picks. Whew, that's an enticing deal. And I know the Celtic fans are kind of being impatient here almost, because it's another trade, and they feel like they're very close to Cleveland. No, they're not. No, no, no. This season was only a tease for the Celtics fans. They know where they are. They're probably the second best or the third best team in the Eastern Conference. And there's not one player in the draft that's going to leap them 2 levels ahead and make them a legitimate finals contender overnight. Ainge even taking this deal, if he does, or taking Markel Fultz and not doing anything at all. uh, there's really not a lose-lose situation for him.
Yeah,
I, I think I think he has to entertain it just because it's enticing, and he has a number one pick in the bag next year.
right. I think Boston is the one team that has a coach and right now the front office and like you're talking about all this leeway with where they're going to be picking in the draft next few years. They have a real chance to change the way the East plays basketball because I think that he's about to try to play a style reminiscent a little bit to the Warriors, but maybe a little bit more, a little tougher because it seems like the perimeter guys he's getting are more defensive guys first, but they can shoot. So it
Hmm.
seems like he's trying to build his shooting, but have his guys be a defensive team because they switch very well and they give the Warriors the worst fits.
They do.
When the Warriors were on their winning streak, the Celtics were the team to beat them. When they played them again the next time, they only won by like 3. For some reason, the way Boston has their team formulated and the style of their offense, it's successful against the Warriors. They just have to figure out how to beat LeBron.
Yeah. Well. See, here's the interesting thing about Boston. It's a it is basically a pass and cut, old school motion offense, just like Butler had. No coincidence, because it's Brad Stevens. But let's add to the fact that they could very well get their shooting two guard in Gordon Hayward, who of course is a Stevens recruit, this coming off season. So um, if Gordon Hayward can come there and they use this pick with Markel Fultz, they dynamically improve this offense. I mean, you could go small, you could go big, you can man, you can play a lot if you get Gordon Hayward. This deal could be massive. If you could get Gordon Hayward and pull off this trade to take and if the Celtics take a guy like a Josh Jackson, the forward from Kansas, which is an immediate upgrade over their starting small forward Jay Crowder. Wow. I mean, this is nuts.
Yeah, Tuesday night is going to be crazy because the trade talks, and this is kind of going to be it, like mostly once the players are picked too, because you know how NBA works. A lot of the trades happen after teams. Let me pick for you, and I'll pick for you, and then we'll make this trade. So Tuesday night is going to be really exciting, especially at the top. Now we'll move on to the next conversation I'd like to have is De'Aaron Fox or Lonzo Ball. The Lakers are going to be picking at number two. There's been a lot of speculation coming out of LA that the Lakers aren't as high on Ball as they want you to believe. There's been a lot of reports about his workout was less than impressive, and they've kind of been leaning more towards Fox. They see kind of the up tempo and the speed that they want to play at coming out of Fox. So I'm gonna just pose a question to you, Tyler. You're Magic Johnson. You're Rob Pelinka. You're Jeannie Buss. You're sitting here at number two. You've got all this stuff going on around you between Boston and the 76ers. Who do you want? Do you want Fox or do you want Ball?
I'm taking I'm gonna take Lonzo at the um I'm at a because let's look at the Lakers themselves as a team. Lonzo Ball's at his best is when he's surrounded by guys who can score with him. You got two guys who are can fill it up in Crawford and Brandon Ingram, who's going to be a legitimate scorer. Uh, Fox probably has the edge in just overall talent as far as mid range and slash and drive, but Lonzo's playmaking ability is a better fit in LA. He may not be the better player, but for the Lakers, Ball is the better fit. Ball's passing and Ball's court vision and his ability to see things 2 plays ahead, and you can clearly see that as you watch this season. Uh, and yes, he did benefit from having great finishers alongside of him. But the fact is, I know he can get to the ball. He can get those guys the ball. I'm not sure if Fox wants to get those guys the ball if he comes to LA. I know Fox wants to get to the cup and score. That's great, but that's not going to help the team get better.
Right. For me, the guy who scares me, if you're talking about just, hey, we're gonna go out here and play and your guy versus my guy, I'm scared to death of Fox just because he's so fast. And like you're saying, if everything's set up for Alonzo Ball to just be a passer and be a playmaker, then yeah, he's gonna look really good. But if it's set up where they're gonna have to rely on him to kind of score too until they can get these pieces from him, he might not look so good for a year or two. It may be kind of like what's wrong with Lonzo Ball. That may be the talk, and everybody may be really down on him in the beginning because he just doesn't have the ability that people will want to see in this era of point guards who can attack and get points. This isn't like 1997 basketball right now, where if your point guard can get out there and get you 8 points and get you 12 assists, 14 assists, then people are good with that. Now people want to see your point guard average double figures, make threes, and the assist numbers can hover around 7 or 8, and people are kind of cool with that. So if I'm the Lakers, for me, if I'm coaching the Lakers, I'd take Fox because I just figure we can add a stretch four, we can add somebody else to shoot around him to take up for his lack of 3-point shooting, but his ability to get to the middle of the court is going to be unparalleled because even if he does gets collapsed upon, he's shown enough passing at Kentucky to where he's a willing passer. He's not going to just force it. He will pass the ball. So that would just make their whole game plan deadly if they want to try to mimic what the Warriors are doing with this 3-point, attack first and then kind of take your layups as they come. So For me, I'm a Fox guy. Just the one-on-one matchups, head-up matchups as well. Just the way that Fox was giving them the blues on defense, just made me really sold on Fox. So
Probably
that'll
for
be interesting.
probably for 2/3 of the teams, I would take Fox. 2/3 of the teams. Um, I don't need. There are a few teams that will take Ball because they either already have a guy who can get to the rim at the point, or they have a lot of scoring and they just need somebody who can distribute properly and not
Right,
necessarily be built on just just a speed guy. The Denver Nuggets remind me of that with Moutier.
right.
Um,
To me, another
Moutier's a get to the rim guy, but he's so inefficient at shooting that that offense is kind of in a lull, even though they're steadily improving. Um,
hmm
especially with that trading deadline trade to get to
the big guy that they
to
got.
get the
Yeah,
big guys. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. To me, Ball makes a lot of sense to go to Boston as well, just because he would be able to pair up with Thomas in the
That's
backcourt. He would help them on defense right away because it wouldn't be a little bit easier to cover up for him on defense. And then, then Thomas could, not have to even worry about thinking about being the distributor that he has to be in the like first three quarters to kind of keep everybody honest. And he could just go out there and just go to the basket and go crazy, kind of reset everybody's role and take a lot of pressure off of Thomas to, run the team and score the ball too. He could just go out there and just score. So, for me, I think that Ball would really work well in Boston right now, just the way their team is set up. Last but not least, as part of every NBA draft, there's always going to be some sleepers. So, Tyler, I'll start with you first. Who do you think could be a sleeper in this draft? Somebody that, maybe low first round or maybe somebody maybe in the second round, because a lot of good basketball players have come out of the second round of the NBA draft.
uh my sleeper. Uh, the one that the sleeper that everybody is talking about is guy from, let's say, big man from Florida State, who who was really good because I watched a lot of ACC basketball, and while he wasn't necessarily a quote unquote star, um, he can definitely muscle some people off the block. Uh, I'm trying to think of his name right now, but he's steadily rising up up the uh, up the draft boards and could change a lot of folks' fortunes, um, if he gets drafted. Now, my other sleeper would be, and I don't call him a sleeper, but um, Luke Kennard
Okay.
is the sleeper. Jonathan Isaac is who I'm thinking about for Florida State.
Okay. All right.
Isaac had a unbelievable workout. Um, he actually had an unbelievable workout and an outstanding spring. And he's actually considered the number 12 prospect and rising. Kennard is my guy at from Duke. Um, Kennard gives you so much uh, scoring ability. Uh, he's a lefty, which is a natural problem to defend. He's a terrific shooter. He's an efficient driver. Um, reminds me a lot of it. Yeah, I mentioned Gordon Hayward earlier. Kennard gives me that type of vibe, um, except he's left-handed, and he'd be a perfect, and I mean a perfect pick for the Phoenix Suns. I'm all I'm all for him going there, but the Suns are actually picking fourth, so they'll probably take Tatum. So
Right.
Kennard is probably going to end up around 11 or 12. So maybe somewhere like a he could end up in Philadelphia. Could be Philly's second pick had they if they decide not to move it. Um, but I think that Kennard doesn't get as much credit as he should. Um, but yeah, he definitely qualifies. I really like guys who can get their own shot, and on top of that, they're difficult to defend as lefties. I mean, you
Mhm.
see, look at Rodney Hood at Duke. Rodney Hood was another Duke guy who's kind of blossomed out in Utah and kind of not necessarily obscurity, but we know he can play, and Kennard kind of fits that role.
Um, my number one sleeper is going to be Lorkin from out of Arizona. Big guy,
Ooh,
7 foot tall guy.
Marketing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
marketing.
yeah,
Is that how?
yeah.
Yeah, marketing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he can
He's
flat out
gonna
shoot the
he's gonna
ball.
be probably my first guy because I mean he's what kind of basketball is right now. Big guy who can shoot, who can play defense in the paint, who can rebound. So anybody who's kind of looking for a stretch four, I think that he's going to be right up there, number one on the list. Collins from Gonzaga, the freshman that went into the lottery this year, I
Yeah,
think he's going to be a steal for whoever gets him. He may be like end of the first round, but whoever gets him, if they can kind of, he has kind of like San Antonio Spurs written all over him, kind of guy they can
hmm
keep on the bench for a year or two, and then bow, he just pops on the scene. And then my last guy would be Jordan Bell from Oregon, also a guy who'll probably go near the end of the first round, but he's real athletic, great rebounder, defensive guy. If he could, develop a little bit of a jump shot, things could be, sky could be the limit for him as well. So,
Bell was unstoppable against UCLA in both of their games this year. I watched those two games specifically, and he looked like even with ball on the floor, he looked at times like he was the best player on the court, and they had no answers for him. Uh, actually, he pretty much knew he had to go toe to toe with uh, with UCLA size in the paint, and new and pretty much neutralized them in both games. Um, UCLA had to come back. That's probably one of Ball's best games of the year, but it was largely because Bell couldn't be guarded. But
right.
yeah, he's definitely interesting. Now, uh, I marketing was the reason to watch Arizona basketball this year until Trier came back. While Trier was suspended, marketing essentially carried Arizona. Um, he was definitely their best player. Uh, there were times where they could not get a basket when while they were waiting for Trier to um, sit out his suspension for PED use. Um, marketing really developed on his own, and really the last 2 years he's been kind of like um, we were kind of expecting uh, the Sabonis kid out of Gonzaga to be what marketing is, you know,
Right.
but
Right.
marketing is a bit bigger, and he's still got that same range. So I would love to see him end up on a team like a. Could you imagine a team like Detroit getting him at uh at 12 or even the
Yeah.
or even Sacramento at 10? I
Yeah.
mean, if he slips
He
that
would.
far,
He's tailor made for Detroit for what Stan Van Gundy wants to do because Stan Van Gundy wants to get as many guys around the 3 point line as he can. So yeah, that would kind of fit right in with the way they kind of want to play basketball. So um, if you want more comprehensive coverage on the NBA draft, I would advise you guys to tune in to the 2.1 Seconds to Madness podcast as K-Baz from the Hot Fire Starter podcast and Russell Engline. They give you over an hour of a mock draft. They have their individual picks as they go through the first round, and they give a breakdown on each player and why they think they would be a good fit for each team they pick them for. So, yeah, you guys take a listen to that leading up here to the draft for a little bit deeper, more comprehensive coverage. Really good talk between those two guys who probably produce the best college basketball podcast in the country for my money. So go ahead and give them guys a listen. Tyler, I'll change it over to you so you can go ahead and drop some things on us. Let's take over the show.
All right. Let's talk about the whole concept of sports award shows. As we know, coming up this week is the NBA regular season award show, which is kind of built like the NFL awards, where they're just going to give them out in one big ceremony. Uh, there's a lot of talk, just really um, about the NBA awards. Of course, the discussion of who's going to win the MVP, and I think is it an after kind of an afterthought now because the NBA finals are over. Since you didn't announce them, like the NFL awards taking place the day before the Super Bowl, so isn't it kind of an afterthought that they're being done now instead of during the season?
I think that the thing about it is they want to be able to get the guys there to have, even the champions there, or at least be able to offer them a chance to be there. And if you do that outside of the finals starting or before the finals or during the season, then there's a chance that they probably won't show up because they have to focus in on the finals. Now, we had that big gap this year between the end of the conference finals and the start of the finals where, yeah, it probably would have made sense and probably would have been logistical to do it this year, but that won't always be the case. So, regardless of the Super Bowl, where there's only two teams that play, and usually, if the MVP is there, they can kind of set it up where he can come out there the night before, and it's not a big a deal. Nobody's all, upset about it. But for the finals, that necessarily is such a long ground and a long series, I don't think people have that much leeway to kind of let their guys go out there and do the ceremony thing and all that stuff. So I think it's just a different point of view.
Um, I look at it as I've been saying all along via social media that it's only a lead up to build the NBA draft. Uh, you want to create content for your media providers. You look at your relationship with ESPN, and you look at all of the radio and TV guys that are there. They need content. Um, I'm a big listener to other major podcasts, and the talk is that it's a struggle to find content during the summer months after the finals. So now you put this in the same week as your draft, and now the NBA gives you a free week to talk. You can talk nothing but basketball, and it's still relevant because you got the debate of the MVP conversation. You got the All NBA debate recharged. You got Defensive Player of the Year is always a conversation of debate. You could talk all that for 2 or 3 days, and then you got the draft on Thursday. So uh, I think that for media purposes, it's great, but I don't think that the effect of it and the actual appreciation of the award uh, keeps its luster when you announce it as late as it is, because I've already said from jump, players respect the Finals MVP. I think that has much more meaning than the regular season MVP. And then and yes, I know it's a regular season and you played all these games, but the Finals MVP is a direct relative to the ring. And in our driven society, our bottom line results driven society, that's what matters. I mean, Jordan isn't talking about his MVP trophies; he's talking about his 6 Finals MVPs.
I think, like you said, it's a great marketing tool to showcase the league. I mean, basketball has always been cool it's always been in the mainstream as the coolest sport. The most celebrities try to hang around. The most visible celebrities hang around. The players are the most visible. You can see their whole bodies, and everybody knows a basketball player when they see him walk down the street, unlike a baseball player or a football player.
Hmm.
So I think to actually have this award is kind of overdue, kind of for them. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's just going to add, like you said, another reason to talk about the NBA and have some more debates in the barbershops and on television once the awards come out, because then it's going to reopen up all of that of, oh, okay, well, this person should have been in this category too, or that, or the third. And then, you get that whole thing starting up, like you said, right into the draft and then into free agency. That's going to be really wild this year. So I think this is going to be one of those summers where the NBA is going to have your attention right up there with NFL training camps. Unless, somebody major gets injured in a training camp early on. I think the NBA is going to be right up there with dueling headlines in the summertime throughout until football actually starts.
Yeah, you pretty much have you have those conversations. You have ESPN's gonna roll their 30 for 30 series of movies and E60s on Sunday for the bios. Um, you're gonna have, and of course, you have baseball. So there's definitely going to be some topics of interest going on uh, between really mid July in a non-Olympic year, mid July, and uh, when you get to August, when training camps really kick in, and then folks will be tuned in to Hard Knocks, and uh, that's pretty much how the summer goes. Uh,
Yeah, I mark off the summer by once we get to the All-Star game in baseball, that's kind of like the last quarter pole before like I turn full attention to thinking about football. I'm one of the footy duddies who still gets jazzed up for the baseball All-Star game. I still like it. It's still fun to me. So, um,
it's it's definitely made for fans, and I can appreciate, I can definitely appreciate um, the home run derby and the All-Star game, and I don't, I think that taking away the home field advantage portion of it, uh, kind of, I don't, well, I don't know really what to think of doing that, but I understand why it's being done. But
well,
it's
it's
still
smart.
great to see. It is, it is. Um,
It's smart. That was the dumbest thing ever. The All-Star game, you just have to manage your team better because guess what, guys? You're playing with the best players in the world. The game may go into extra innings. So don't burn through everybody. You got to manage your team thinking that, hey, we could get a 2-2 game here, and I'm going to need at least a closer and a long reliever so we can go a few more innings.
mhm.
But,
I, I I I think you put too much pressure on the managerial staff, to be honest. As far as
yeah.
you got one decision with an all-star that could determine everything, and I kind of think that's not the kind of pressure you want in an all-star game. I agree. I can definitely see that.
Right.
Um,
The one thing that they should probably do is just expand the roster by like two more guys. And then, you know what I'm saying, you wouldn't have that problem. But, they're not going to do that.
uh, and as we segue into our next topic, um, we can really kick in and talk about baseball. Um, as we take a look at the standings, it's the what really sticks out is the play of Aaron Judge, who is just taking the league by storm. Um, he's just unbelievable. It's just, I guess he's just one of those guys that just has, he has that it. Um, he's just catching hold of everything, and it seems like every good swing that he gets on the ball seems to fly. Um, but anything anything that you've seen so far as the any surprises as far as baseball, other than the obvious, which would be Aaron Judge for the Yankees.
Just speaking on Judge, to me, watching him play, he has really good discipline at the plate to be such a tall guy. He really understands his strike zone. And I think that's the reason why when hits the baseball, it goes so far and travels so far, is because he's not swinging at a lot of pitches that are outside of where he can get to. I mean, the kid is 6'7", so his strike zone is very big, but he has a great ability, even to be so young, to zero in on kind of, hey, this is where the ball needs to be. And if you throw it on the fringes of where I want to hit it, then I'm willing to live with you taking a strike. Or you have to be so perfect that if you don't get it right on the fringe of where it needs to be, if you do make a mistake, I'm going to make it go so far that you're not going to give me anything else to hit the next time I come up here, and I'm just going to take my walk. And I think that's a lot of things that a lot of young sluggers um, don't do once they start getting on the streak and start getting the notoriety for being a slugger is they start trying to hit everything out of the park and don't take their walks, because that eventually you're going to get respect where they don't throw the ball over the plate and just hope you get yourself out. And if you can take your walks, you'll, it just enhances your ability to hit the ball over the fence, because now they know they got to throw you some really, really, really good pitches to get you out. My other thing about baseball right now is just the Cubs. They're kind of struggling, scuffling. They got a little bit of that hangover for win the World Series, and how can you blame them? And the National League Central as a whole is really tight. The Cardinals kind of scuffled. They're kind of back into it now. The Brewers, they've been playing some pretty good baseball underneath the radar. So that kind of division has been pretty good to watch. And
That's a
also the
leading
Central.
division, which is a surprise. Milwaukee's
Right, right.
up two and a half games up on Chicago as of right now, which is incredible. But the issue with the Cubs to me is that just the timely hitting isn't there right now.
Right. Not having Dexter Fowler is proven to be a bigger loss than they thought, just because he was always on base and he was always great and stuff. The way that Joe Madden likes to play, he likes to put pressure on you with stealing bases and things like that. And right now, they've kind of just reverted to just kind of, home run team, and they don't have a lot of people on base, so they're just hitting solo shots right now. And you can get beat hitting solo homers. It's kind of hard to get beat when you're hitting 2 and 3 run homers. So that was kind of the formula that they used last year that hasn't showed up for them this year. Over in the American League, being a Baltimore Orioles fan, um, I don't know what's going on right now. Their pitching hasn't really got any better. Thought that their pitching was going to head in a better direction beginning of the year, but it's kind of regressed. And then their hitting has been kind of scuffling. Chris Davis has gone on a DL now, so they're down one more bat. Um, the Central, surprised that Kansas City has been struggling as much as they have. I knew that Cleveland and the White Sox would kind of be battling here. I like what they're kind of doing, and then in the West. What can you say, man? The Houston Astros are just fantastic. They're fun to watch. Them and the Yankees are probably the most enjoyable team to watch. They're young. They just have a bunch of kids out there that are going out there playing baseball real hard. They have really good defense. I think that's kind of one thing that's Houston's calling card right now is they're strong up the
Mm-hmm.
middle, shortstop, second base, combination center field. Just fantastic. And last but not least, like we talked about last week, just Colorado Rockies. I
Yeah.
mean, they're out there in the West and they are just putting it on folks, and they're putting it on folks with their pitching late in games. If they have any type of lead home or away, I mean, they are just locking the game down. And it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of keep that up through the summer. It's going to warm up in Denver, which means the home runs are going to go up. And can they keep the ball down and keep it inside the ballpark? Because I mean, in relativity, Coors Field is a huge park, but because of the way the atmosphere is set up, the ball makes it seem like a small place. But if they can continue to keep the ball in the park and on the ground, the Rockies might be a really tough place to play in the playoffs because you guys know it snows there in October and nobody likes to play baseball in the cold.
Uh, Another surprise. You could see this coming a little bit last year, but injuries kind of set them back. The Arizona Diamondbacks are sitting 15, almost 15 games above 500. What in the world? Um,
Right.
they're they're darn near going from worst to first right now, and uh, just what a difference a year makes. I mean, when things tend to work out in the bullpen, so, I mean, it starts with your starting pitching. Your starting pitching is performing. They're getting a lot of quality, tons of quality starts. They're dangerously close to exceeding what they got last year. Uh, but they've had they finally the hitting has actually come around to help out Goldschmidt, and that's been a remarkable story. Yeah, they're literally yeah. And you
Yep.
look at the West, you got three teams that are 15 games above 500 and better,
Hmm.
which is incredible. Um, and
Yeah.
you look at and they're putting runs up. I mean, look at the scoring differential at the Rockies are plus 69, but the Diamondbacks are plus 84, and the Dodgers are plus 89. I mean, they put the bat on the ball, and plus they win at home.
Right.
Uh, they've done extremely well at home. Matter of fact, the Diamondbacks are 26-9 at home, which is incredible, all things considered. That they're talking about moving to a ownership wants to move into a new stadium, which of course has been met with some they've had some increased attendance numbers, but it's once you hear new stadium, that's usually never good news for the fans. Another
You
thing
have to, well,
that's
hold
hurt
on
me
before
is
you have to give a big shout out, even though he's not there anymore and he got fired right before the season started. You have to give a big shout out to Dave Stewart
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and for what he did in their front office to set them up because like you said for 2 years they had kind of been laying in the weeds but their injury situation had kind of held them back and unfortunately Dave Stewart lost his job because the expectations were high and they did not meet them but this year it seems that they are going to meet them and this is directly the work of Dave Stewart and the players that he has put on the field as their GM.
And you look and you see where you have there is clearly in baseball there is you starting to see the haves and have-nots. Um, you got the American League East separated by 7 games. The Central is separated by 5 games, and then the only other division that's even close is the NL Central, where you even have the Reds still in it. They're only 7 games down. Uh, I think that it's shaping up to you're going to have three really good divisions worth watching, and the top teams in the NL are just gonna bottom feed until the playoffs. So July and August really kind of shape themselves. You hope that there are no injuries, but that's baseball. So we'll
Uh,
see what happens.
one last story to watch is can the Nationals find themselves a closer through either their minor league system, through somebody that they have on the roster in their bullpen right now, or do they go out and make a trade? Because that's really the only drama that they're going to have in their
Hmm.
division. They're up by
Yep.
so far right now. And don't really see the Braves or Miami, making a move. The Mets are dead in the water because their pitching staff is just their injury status is just going to keep them too far out of the race. So the Nationals' game plan right now is basically looking at the playoffs and locking down the ninth inning, because the games that they're losing is because they're blowing leads that they have in the eighth and ninth innings. And, what happens in May and what happens in June can still be a problem in October. And the Nationals definitely don't want that to crop up. That's the reason why they don't advance again to the World Series when they clearly have maybe the best team, at least in the National League, for sure.
Well, well, as I say, it's after Memorial Day, and baseball will now take the mantle. Um, I'm just looking forward to the remainder of the season and eventually the playoffs. And it really kicks in, like you said, after the All-Star game and that break. And then we'll see if people can keep their, you know, and usually your teams with the best bullpens are the teams that actually do well, and particularly in those one-game playoff formats. Um, so we'll see if the Astros can keep it up and maybe get an MVP season from Correa.
If he
Mets
keeps
too.
if he keeps pitching the way he is, though, they're gonna have to give some MVP votes to Keuchel, because I mean the man is impressive when he goes out on that mound, and even if he doesn't win it, he still needs to be in the conversation.
All right, just a reminder that you are listening to Know the Score. Don't forget to you can tweet us via our Twitter at KTSPOD. And our Twitter handles are Don Delarente and TA Ball number 1. Um, as we're getting close to closing out the show, um, this weekend is Father's Day weekend, and usually if we're not watching the finals, there's the U.S. Open. Um, I've remember sharing. I remember just the epic Father's Day experiences with athletes and their dads. Foot Locker ran a great commercial this week with the NBA draft prospects, reflecting on their relationship with their fathers. That's just another notch in the legacy. You have Tiger Woods winning the U.S. Open on Father's Day, um, and sharing the trophy with his dad, and of course Michael Jordan's epic uh, celebration reflecting on his father, where he just fell to the ground in tears, winning his fourth NBA title um, on Father's Day, and that was the first one he had won without his dad being there. So just I mean, Father's Day in sports is a big deal. You got fathers and sons, both athletes. You look at the Bonds, you look at Bonds, you look at the Griffeys, you even look at Klay Thompson and his dad, Michael Thompson, who are NBA kids, NBA dads, and his son is now, um, on the track to being recognized as one of the greats. Um, it's just wonderful to see um, our athletes reflect and remember their dad. So you look at Dale Earnhardt Jr. and how much he misses his father, and when he talks about his dad and how his dad was an influence on his life and driving. Those are always heartfelt stories. Even PK Subban earlier this year, talking about the relationship that his dad and how he and his brothers got into hockey and how his father was always supportive. Um, I can reflect on my own. My dad, who was a sports writer, wrote for the Greensboro News and Record before switching fields. He actually served 9 years at the uh, media relations office at North Carolina A&T. And when I joined the office as an intern my freshman year, I went and found uh, a scrapbook where my dad kept all of his clippings um, from his time at A&T, and T, and I can see myself in some of the pictures where um, he celebrated with North Carolina A&T uh, as they were on their run of seven straight appearances in the NCAA tournament, a feat that's only been matched twice. You win your conference tournament 7 years in a row. I think the likes of Kentucky and Duke are the only schools ever to match that. Um, just remembering, he taught me how to write and how to do a sports recap, and I would send him my stuff, and he would always be reflective, and he told me that I had potential to actually do this for a living, and for quite a while I did, and it was a great time, and we still share sports conversations, and when he calls me and we talk about what's going on as far as the sports world, it's kind of our bond that's always going to be there. Um, Don, if you have any, Father's Day thoughts, in sports, and how that shaped your life, feel free to reflect on that.
I just think kind of just going back and watching Tiger Woods win the U.S. Open on Father's Day. It's always kind of been my kind of big sports Father's Day moment. Um, Not really anything, bonding like that with my dad or playing sports or whatever when I played or whatever for Father's Day memory that stick out. Just kind of just the biggest events have always been kind of on Father's Day. U.S. Open, big races, finals, things like that. Michael Jordan, like you said, just falling down in the heap in the locker room with the trophy, just crying his eyes out. That kind of stuck out, sticks out as kind of Father's Day, something that happened on Father's Day. I think maybe Dale Earnhardt Jr. Might have won the Michigan race when he was in his long losing streak. I think he actually might have broke the slump on Father's Day.
Hmm.
So yeah, so those are kind of some things that stick out to me. Just on the Father's Day Sunday, kind of sports things that are just at the front of my mind. So.
Yeah, you talk about living up to sons living up to their father's legacy. You look at uh, even Brett Hall, who, wow, you got to feel for him because Bobby Hall is considered to be one of the greatest until Gretzky came along, and then Brett had to wait a while to even to he as much many goals as he put up, he had to wait forever to win a championship, and he was saddled with a lot of the expectations of his dad being a hockey icon. Um, it kind of makes me reflect on how we try to emulate, but at the same time, you want to be we like to be our own men, and when Hall won the championship and with a Stanley Cup winning goal in overtime in Game 6 in '99, um, that pretty much put him on the map as he's finally emerged from his father's shadow because he got that cup title, and now he's executive VP of his team of the St. Louis Blues. So it's I always wonder how those relationships uh, happen when fathers and sons get in sports, particularly in the sports that their fathers excelled in. You look at Henry and Mike Bibby, and they didn't have that type of relationship. They were almost estranged um, while Bibby was playing. I mean, it's improved now. And you look at Austin and Doc Rivers, just those type and the those type of relationships. You kind of wonder how how it feels to be the kid, and it's always interesting to hear them talk. And so I will be looking for those type of stories that the media tends to cover on Father's Day, and I'll always have good memories of my dad and I talking sports. Um, any other final thoughts that you want to add for the show, Don?
Real quick, the Redskins named Doug Williams, the basically the head of player personnel for the front office. So now the front office is basically Doug Williams and Bruce Allen, and then Jay Gruden, and they'll all come together for these, 53-man roster and the direction of the team going forward. Now that we got the front office in somewhat back intact, let's go ahead and sign Kirk Cousins, please. Do it now before the 15th of July, before Derek Carr gets re-signed and the number goes through the roof for what they have to pay Kirk Cousins. I mean, it'll blow people away that he's going to make like $32 million a season, but that'll pale in comparison when uh, Derek Carr gets his $35 million a season like a few weeks later. So they need to go ahead and do that. The Redskins could have some stability for the first time in like 20 years because it looks like they finally might be on the right path to being a contender and not just, every 4 years being a mixed type of team.
Okay. My final thought for the show is that the super team narrative is overrated. The fans don't care about it. The fans just want to have something to debate about in regards of individual talent. We're in an era where players are going to do whatever it takes to get a ring, particularly they're the top of the line players, their best players. There's no organic way to win a championship in this salary cap / free agency era. Build through the draft and lose and lose and lose and lose versus having the money and having the clout and having the assets to reconstruct your team and win. I think I know which option most GMs would like to have. Um, you look at players switching teams and joining better teams. You look at Aqib Talib's comments when, talking about Kevin Durant, which is laughable because Aqib Talib left the Patriots to join the Broncos in order to win a Super Bowl. Okay. That's hilarious in itself. It's not I don't think that the super team narrative is really worth discussing because there's no parity. There's not really any parity, particularly in the NBA. You have terrible GMs. You have terrible teams. You have owners that choose making money over mandating that teams sign great players and spend a lot of money to get great players. And that's just not in the NBA, but that's in all sports. Uh, the super team discussion only exists for media content and barbershops. That's it. For myself, I'm not going to have those greatest of all time conversations without taking into account what they did on the court, not necessarily who their teammates were or you know their clutch the quote unquote clutch narrative. No, I'm not going to do that. We're just going to talk about what they did on the court. Did they score? Did they defend? Did they rebound? Did they contribute to their team? And were they better than anybody else doing it? And that again, that goes on all sports. For Don Delarente, for our two co-hosts, That's So Jesse and Tobias Wilborn, I'm Tyler Ball, and now you know the score.